are the universe, so beautiful. Through all of the hurt, we'll stand invincible, so beautiful. We'll take on the world. We'll take on the world.
What's up, hysterical people? This is a big thrill for me. I'm here with Dorothy Fadiman, who is the creator, filmmaker of many films, but the ones we're going to talk about today are from the series Choice at Risk. And she's the founder of Concentric Media and has been a filmmaker doing amazing work her whole life, really. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and elaborate a little bit on that, but then we'll dig into the abortion films, which are so crucial and important at this moment.
Well, my name is Dorothy Fadiman, and I have been making films now for more than 50 years. The subjects cover a wide range of material, but what I'm particularly interested in now is women's rights. The film When Abortion Was Illegal was released in 1992. One of the reasons I made the film When Abortion Was Illegal is because of my own back alley abortion, and at that point still I was concerned about abortion's legality, because even though Roe v. Wade was already part of the legal system that we were living in 1992, there were threats to Roe v. Wade being overturned. And I decided to make the film so that women who had no memory of the back alley abortions or no knowledge of the back alley abortions would begin to understand the risk and the importance of making and keeping abortion legal.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an important time. The anti-movement was getting louder.
Well, President Bush then it seemed to me, was threatening to enable the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's why I made the film. Now, Roe v. Wade has been overturned, and we are facing the back alley days again.
I mean, we're already there in so many states. It's
That's
actually
right.
happening.
State by state, there are states throughout the country which are making a safe, legal abortion basically unavailable. These women who become pregnant and either can't afford or don't want to bear another child, or a first child, are being forced, if they can, to go to a state where abortion is still legal.
Yeah, so just as of this morning, I read that, and again, this is from Guttmacher Research Institute, tracks all of this data, and that's how you can understand the trends and what's been going on. But so it's not working. This whole overturning of Roe v. Wade is not working because they actually have gone up. Abortions have gone up 11% from 2020 to 2023, if you look at the entire year and the number of abortions. And that's because people are traveling and they're getting access elsewhere. But that also makes me worry, because that's what's going to motivate the anti-abortion people to try to ban it nationwide.
Right.
Yeah, so that we're in a tenuous place right now, and we've really got to put it back for everybody. So your first film, When Abortion Was Illegal, Untold Stories, that's mainly about actual women who had experiences of back alley abortions.
And it is not only about the women who had the experience of a back alley abortion, but that film includes a wide range of other people who enabled and supported women to get safe care.
Yes.
And one of the featured interviews in that film is with Dr. Curtis Boyd, a courageous physician who enabled thousands of women to get safe, illegal abortions from him.
So then you followed up When Abortion Was Illegal with From Danger to Dignity.
Right.
Did you go back out to do that, or was it more footage that you already had?
I started from scratch to make the second film, and I went to people who had been active in making safe back alley abortions for people. There were groups throughout the country, and doctors throughout the country, and clergy, ministers, and rabbis, all of whom were able to find safe, illegal abortions for women. And I also interviewed the legislators. In the state of New York, Assemblywoman Connie Cook introduced a bill to make abortion legal. That bill, with George Michaels speaking out and casting a vote to pass that bill in support of it, made it possible for abortion to become legal in the state of New York, the first state in the country to make abortion legal. And actually, after it was introduced and passed, Women from all over the country came to New York so they could take advantage of the possibility
Right.
of getting a safe, legal abortion, the only state in the country.
And so at that moment, this was in the late 60s.
So after George Michael's bill in New York was passed, and women were coming from all over the country to the state of New York to get safe, legal abortions, an attorney, Sarah Weddington, who had had a back alley abortion herself, decided to take a case and went all the way to the Supreme Court with that case with the hope of making abortion legal.
It was very brave. I mean, it was a group of women. Sarah Weddington was one of them, and she's the one that you interviewed. Really amazing interview in the film. I think she was the one that actually argued the case in front of the Supreme Court. So she was the main one.
And as she says in the film, From Danger to Dignity, before she argued that case and before she went into the room to speak to the Supreme Court, she reflected on her own back alley illegal abortion and what a tragic memory that was, which is one of the reasons she took the case. Several years after making When Abortion Was Illegal, I decided to make a story about the people in the back alley days who enabled women to get safe, legal abortions wherever they could get them, but the majority of the abortions still were illegal. So there were a number of people who enabled women to get safe, illegal abortions.
Yeah. In addition to Dr. Boyd, you had Sarah Weddington, and I like Dr. Hodgson out of Minnesota. And she was trying in the 60s to get something done in Minnesota, and then, really hitting so many roadblocks. But then when the New York bill was passed, that sort of inspired her to try again. So that's amazing. I loved the fact that you really brought in all of these people that were really the champions back in the day to help hear their stories.
And there were groups of people, usually women, in addition to the clergy, who worked together to educate women, to bring them in, and to teach them even safe ways to self-abort in those days when abortion was illegal.
Right. And that was fascinating because this DIY abortion knowledge and the instructions on how to do that then became banned. So they tried anything they could to just keep abortions from happening.
And there were also groups of women, and Jane is the best known,
right,
who decided to create a situation where these women would perform safe, illegal abortions. And again, women came from all over the country to Jane to get a safe, illegal abortion.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, actually, so I loved the Janes, the documentary. I didn't like the film as much, but the documentary was really fascinating. And actually, some of your footage was included in that documentary that came out a couple years ago now. Is that right? Or you were involved somehow?
One of the advantages I've had is the Stanford Archives requested all of my footage from When Abortion Was Illegal, Danger to Dignity, and a third film, Fragile Promise. And when the Janes were making their film, and they came to me because they had heard that I had interviewed some of the founders of Janes, and I was able to go back into the Stanford Archives. I found original footage of some of the women who had been there when the Janes were first created.
Amazing. That's so wonderful. Yeah.
One of the most important interviews in From Danger to Dignity was with Sherry Finkbein. She was the host of Romper Room. And when she was pregnant, she had taken thalidomide. And she read and heard then that thalidomide could cause a deformed fetus. She tried to get an abortion, a legal abortion, because she was in danger. She couldn't get it. So she flew to Sweden, and in Sweden she got a safe, illegal abortion. When she came back to the United States, the first thing that happened is Romper Room fired her because she was unfit, according to them, to be with children.
That's so ridiculous. She had a wanted pregnancy and then, had an issue and then essentially was canceled, as we would now say.
And the research that the Swedish people did on the fetus that she had aborted in Sweden legally was indeed deformed.
And what I want to talk is how you made the decision to come back 15 years later, right? So I'm going to ask you that. That's the first question.
When abortion became legal, throughout the country, there were challenges, And one of the major challenges is that clinics were being attacked
Right.
by pro-lifers. One of the major forms of attack were fires. So I went around the country and I interviewed clinicians whose clinics had been set on fire.
Yeah, there were like bombs and arson, and I mean it still happens a little bit. You hear there was a clinic in Wyoming, I think a couple years ago, post Roe v. Wade being overturned, that had an arson attack. But not only the arson and fires at the clinic, murder. For a lot of people had death threats.
During the era when abortion was already legal and groups were politicizing the issue, several doctors were killed.
And you interviewed one who talked about a threat on his life.
Oh, yes.
Like a year before your interview, and then several years later, he actually was murdered.
Well, many doctors who were performing legal abortions, when there was this threat to doctors and clinics, would wear a bulletproof vest to work every day. As one doctor's little daughter told him, "Dad, I hope nobody tries to kill you today."
Yeah, I think some of the quotes, I made the mistake of watching that film this morning, like while I was trying to put makeup on and stuff, and I was just getting really emotional. It's heart-wrenching. I mean, as somebody who had an abortion and wants it to be legal for everybody, but I don't think I would ever choose to do the work where my life is threatened every single day and just my very existence. But those people are so passionate and so giving and so wonderful that they are literally risking their life every day.
One of the things we're doing with the films, because people have a shorter and shorter attention span, and many people really don't want to watch a half-hour or an hour-long film, I made, working with some of my young team, little clips of moments from each of the films. And we're putting those clips on social media. And those clips have got more than 500,000 views.
Wow.
And at the end of each clip, we then give people information on where they can get care, how they can donate, and how important it is to vote. As a 501c3, we can't tell people how to vote, but we can encourage them to vote and make it clear that their vote will make a difference.
I believe you even have like links to voter registration sites on your website. And
absolutely. Voter registration and the importance of voting, but not how to vote.
Right. Yeah. That's good.
One of the stories in the film Fragile Promise of Choice is the experience of a Catholic woman, a Latina, who had a clinic. And she was warned that if she continued to provide abortion services, she would be excommunicated. And indeed, she was excommunicated. And in the film is a passionate interview with her about why she was willing to risk her Catholic religion status to perform these abortions is because she cared about women's rights more than her status with the Catholic Church.
Yeah. And I think the quote that really just shocked me, even though I'm here and I know that this is true, she said, in the 90s, in another time, I would have been burned at the stake. Even in the 90s, the big punishment was not death, fortunately, but it was being ostracized and basically excommunicated from her church.
When I made all three films, when abortion was illegal, From Danger to Dignity, and The Fragile Promise of Choice, what I was always looking for was when the interviewees touched me, moved me, made me angry, or made me hopeful, or simply gave me a sense of the possibility of keeping abortion safe and legal whenever and however possible. So when I was either moved to tears or made hopeful, I took those moments and I would build a whole scene around moments like that.
I mean, it really shows because, I mean, it's moving, emotional, hopeful, depressing, sad, but like all of it. And it just is, it's really, I mean, an amazing group of films. And
one of the reasons I wanted to choose those moments which moved me or angered me or made me hopeful or made me grateful that someone had the courage to share certain stories is because I wanted you, as a viewer, to be able to be touched and identify with the speaker so that when you vote, when you decide to vote and you go to vote, you recognize that this importance of the upcoming election is relevant to us all.
I mean, so especially in the 90s when you were making the film. So, like, my question is, how did you get in touch with these people? Did you, like, look them up in the phone book? You know, we didn't have, maybe we had email?
No, the way I got in touch with these people was by word of mouth. When I started to make the film, when abortion was illegal, a woman from Planned Parenthood said she knew a doctor, Dr. Curtis Boyd, who was able to perform thousands of abortions when they were illegal, and he was my first interviewee.
Ah, lovely. The thing about Dr. Boyd is I learned about him from the folks in Dallas at the First Unitarian Universalist Church because they were working with Dr. Boyd, I think, in those times. Not them, but the predecessors who were there back in the day were working with him. And I believe maybe there were other ways, but he was, they were shipping people or transporting people to the Gulf of Mexico, and they were on barges or ships or what have you. And that's how he was doing it, I believe, out of Texas.
And the main source of people who referred clients to Dr. Curtis Boyd were the clergy, ministers and rabbis throughout the country who were hearing from women who were unintentionally pregnant and did not want to have a baby. They were referring people directly to Dr. Curtis Boyd.
I love that. I think he's still helping us.
Dr. Curtis Boyd is still in practice.
And I believe he's moved his practice to New Mexico or Albuquerque, somewhere there. Yeah. So go see him if you need help, but there's plenty of others that are in the states that are allowed to do it. And so we're still doing it. We're going to continue to do it. And it's actually gone up. The number of abortions has gone up since 2020 from 2020 to 2023. It's gone up by 11%. So that's a spectacular failure for the Supreme Court and all the bullshit anti-abortion people who have tried to stop us. We're going to keep doing it, and they cannot stop us from getting the healthcare that we need. Yeah, it's just so inspiring, these stories. And also heart-wrenching at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. You got to watch it. So how can people watch the films?
The film When Abortion Was Illegal, which was nominated for the Oscar, and the film From Danger to Dignity, which got an Emmy, are available online. And if you go to Abortion Films Choice at Risk, you can watch them and you can watch the clips from them.
Yes, I will link in the notes of the show for the description. We'll have links to our website where you can find all the films, and we'll also plug your social media so people can tune into that as well. Wonderful.
Motherhood by Choice takes excerpts from each of the 3 films because I wanted to make it possible in a half hour to have the most profound and provocative bites from each of the 3 films in one place. And we also have Spanish language versions of that film. Dolores Huerta opens it.
And that's great. But that was 2010. And then, social media was just kind of getting going at that time. So now you're evolving into even shorter clips because our attention spans are shrinking. And that way you're reaching younger audiences. You're on TikTok, I believe, and Reddit and all the regular, platforms, Instagram and all that stuff. So we'll definitely have to talk with your social media team. So let's get into it with Dorothy and Hannah. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having us.
So Hannah, these films are clearly so important, especially now at this moment in time in 2024, when reproductive rights have already been taken away from so many people in so many states, and potentially they're even threatening a nationwide ban. So what are you doing leading up to the election to help get the word out and spread the messages from the film?
As Dorothy has said, these films are really powerful and have a way of speaking to people through storytelling. And so nowadays, you can tell so many stories on social media. And so what we've been doing is kind of transforming the films and making them into stories that work on those platforms using TikTok and Reddit and Instagram and Facebook, and crafting little clips that really get to the heart of the issues that are unfortunately happening today, but also were talked about in the films because history is kind of repeating itself. And so we've just been trying to really highlight that around like this has happened before, or things like this, women have gone through these experiences before, and it's not okay that it's happening again, and we need to take action and get up and do something about it. So we're hoping that these social media clips can do that to inspire young people especially to go out there and vote and use their voice and make change.
So, how have you been choosing the clips and what is your process? Tell us.
So we've had an incredible team. We have had two amazing editors who have helped us craft some of the clips. And it really depends on the platform. So as fellow marketing people will know, like each platform has its own rules and has its own things that work well. TikTok has been expanding its content to make it longer content, as well as like incorporating all the funny memes and different trends. So we've been trying to play off of those. And I think what really resonates with people are the stories. So the real women telling their experiences of their back alley abortions or being denied care or being stigmatized by their family and their community. Those are the stories that work because those are the stories that are real. And so many women across the country can resonate with that and they relate to that, which is unfortunate, but also a tool that we've been trying to use because it does create a powerful message for those who are in the trenches now, so to speak.
Yeah, that's great. I was inspired, of course, by the film and many of the stories in them. But I think what's so compelling and tragic about the pre-Roe era stories, which are contained within Choice at Risk and really harkening back to that era, is the stigma was much worse back then. So many moments were so impactful, but I think in some cases you may wonder, how are we going to reach the young people? Because maybe they won't want to pay attention to a clip in black and white, and things like that. So how do you weigh different clips that you're thinking about putting out there, or maybe are you just putting them out there and testing to see what works best?
I think we've done a lot of different things. One of the things that we've been trying to focus on is really connecting the past with the present. So looking at current events and stories and things that are happening right now and finding clips in the films that are the exact same thing or very, very similar issues like economic barriers, access to resources, information just about what type of abortions are out there. Like when the films were made, it was less about the different kinds of abortions that you could have and more just like figuring out ways to access healthcare in general, like illegally in many cases. And now things have changed. So now there you can get an abortion by ordering a pill online, but it's still challenging. And I think the scary thing is a lot of people don't know what's available to them. And so using that fear from the past around what do I do when I get pregnant, when I don't want to be, when I'm unmarried and have no resources, or maybe I do have resources and I just don't want to have a child. There's that fear that the film really does a really good job at sharing the emotions that people went through. And so trying to hone in on those and connect with the fear that people my age and people younger than me and around and a little bit older than me are experiencing right now, because I do think that's one of the biggest emotions right now is fear of what's to come and the terrifying reality of what Project 25 promises, of resources in southern states already being gone. Like Project 25 is an idea for a lot of the western states, but some states people are living through certain things like that right now. And so when we're choosing clips, we're really trying to hone in on the story and the emotions behind the stories and reminding people that it's not just a horrible nightmare. Like things like this have happened before, which means they can happen again. And we can't take that for granted. We have to take action. We have to go out and vote.
What is your main call to action at the end of, or is it all the same? All just get out there and vote?
We've really been just trying to focus on pushing to vote. Use your voice, get educated, read what each of the candidates stand for, make your own decisions, of course, but really go out there and vote and remember that our rights are on the line and your voice does count. I am fearful that young people don't realize that it's not just the presidential election on the line. There's local elections that can make just as big of an impact. Abortions on the ballot in a number of states this November. So if you're in one of those states, like it's really important that you vote, that you get informed about these issues and you make sure that your voice is heard.
Absolutely. I am very passionate about those abortion initiatives in up to maybe 11 states this November. They're not all quite there yet, but that's one of the reasons why the Hysterical Society is actually crowdfunding for election abortion ads to help push those abortion initiatives over the line. We're weaponizing Citizens United to go back at the GOP who are putting all these bans in place in these southern states. So anyway, hopefully we'll get enough to really make a dent.
We've partnered with Feel Good Action, which is an initiative that's been helping us access the grants that we have for Google Ad grants that nonprofits have access to. And they've been able to take that money and help spread the word on getting people to vote and reminding people to check their registration, specifically through the lens of abortion rights and reproductive justice. And now we're working on trying to partner with other reproductive justice organizations around the country, sharing our clips and the films, of course, and just figuring out as many ways as we can get involved to make a difference and help each other out. I think young people my age are surprised when they see the clips or when they see the history of what people went through in the past. I think there's not a lot of acknowledgement of that sometimes. Like we talk about women fighting for women's rights and abortion rights as this thing that happened like a long time ago, but really it hasn't been that long, and people are still actively trying to embrace those rights now. So I'm hopeful that people my age will take the initiative. I know there's a lot of excitement that Kamala is now the new running candidate. She's very pro-abortion, very pro-reproductive rights. So we love seeing that. And I'm hopeful that that will inspire people my age to get out there and vote. But yeah, it's kind of wild. Our team is a symbol even for how this issue can cross generations and how it impacts and is important to all of us, regardless of our age. And so that's pretty inspiring. I think we have someone from every generation on our team. So that's really wonderful to see.
Well, that's great. Well, game on for the next 3 months, basically.
Yes. Like with everything, it takes a lot of trial and error to get it to fit just right, especially when you're thinking about storytelling and using a creative aspect combined with something that is more structured or a little less creative. And social media has been drastically changing and rapidly changing constantly since it's come out, really. So something that our team has been working on has been trying to adapt to those changes and figure out different ways of sharing the same clip that maybe tackles different events in the news or tackles a different segment. For example, on Instagram, we'll do shorter clips. On TikTok, we'll do longer. On Reddit, they're even longer or they're more state focused. So really targeting the platform and crafting our content to fit that platform and what that platform is asking for has been really important for success. And we've seen that even though that ask from those platforms have been changing a lot, if we can stay on top of that, then we can change with them and really connect with more viewers. We've had over 1 million views over the past couple of years, but we know people are interested. It's just about how can we present it in the way that they'll see it and they'll understand it and it will connect with them.
Wonderful. So, what are all the platforms that you guys are on? You mentioned some that I didn't even realize. So,
Everything is called Choice at Risk. We're on TikTok, we're on Reddit, we're on Instagram. We used to be on X, but we're not anymore. Like we have an account, but we don't use it anymore. I stopped using that once it turned to X. X is Twitter. And Facebook as well, but our main platforms are TikTok and Instagram. And then we use Reddit for state specific information because there are different rules that the platform, each group on Reddit requires. And so it's easier. You can't randomly post clips. You have to have some connection to the state. So when something comes out that's really important, like one of the abortion initiatives, I'll pick a post that's maybe relevant to that and talk about the initiative via text and then find the information, find places where people can donate in that state, provide the link for people to sign, or some of them have to be in person, so like a location, and then we'll share that and that will get approved and that will go on their state site. And we've had actually a lot of success on those.
great. I
On
never
that
would have
platform.
read it, but yeah, no, who knew? Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are threads that are already there about that initiative in the state, and then you just jump on and
No, there are threads about like Arizona thread. So anything that's happening in Arizona, we can post about in that thread. And so with the abortion initiative in Arizona happening, we might talk about that and post something about that, and people can comment and they see it. And my schedule is I wake up, I make myself coffee, and then I go and check what is happening in the US around abortion rights. So if something new happens that day or last night, I know about it. And if it's urgent, I'll write a post, I'll send it to Dorothy, we'll edit it together, we'll make it work right, we'll pick a clip, and then we'll post it on that state chat so that it's relevant, it's current, and it really gets people talking and aware of what's happening.
And what Hannah's been really good at is taking a clip from the film, which is not from that state, but the issue may be relevant to what's going on in that state. And so she is learning to dovetail some of the strong moments from the film of what happened 30 or 40 years ago with something that's happening today.
Yeah, I think that that is key, right? To get people to fully appreciate, especially the young people, not you, Hannah, because you're clued in, all of the other young people who maybe not as clued in, that this is already happened in a lot of states. It's not surprising that it's mostly red states that are having abortion bans nowadays.
And I also think something that is, or it was a surprise to me, or I thought was important, is that yes, the red states are primarily the states where the services are not available in the state. And because of that, people are getting pushed to the other states where it is still legal or it is still available. And then those states are at a crisis for resources because they can barely sustain enough services for their own people in their own state. And now you have thousands of people traveling into those states. So they need just as much support as the other states, if not more, because they are on the ground working currently trying to fund abortion and travel and the cost of travel and housing. There's so many different barriers that go into accessing resources across state lines. That's been something that we've also been trying to do, is making sure our posts include action items. Before we asked people to go and vote, it was go and donate. $10, $5, donate your time, volunteer at your clinic, be a clinic escort, share this post, do anything you can to try to make a difference and get involved. So that's what we've been trying to do with the posts as well.
I think it's great.
We have foundations that have been giving us grants for the last 40 years, and they are our resource. We're not asking for donations from individuals, we're working on grants.
If people wanted to support us in some way, one thing that they could do is, if they want to either host or get involved with a screening of the films or share any of the information, all of our resources are free. They're accessible. We're happy to give people everything that we've created or just some of it. We just want to make sure that people know that if they want to use it, they can, and they can turn it and make it their own. And just reach out to us. We can provide the information for you.
So I'll put the link in the description and the information for the podcast episode.
And what's really nice, Hannah mentioned earlier about feel good action. On our website, along with our clips and along with our films, there's a place that people can ask and respond, are you registered? If not, here you can register. So we're really supporting that whole cycle on our website, which you're holding the films and the clips.
Awesome. Right. So you can see the films on the website, and there's a link to register to vote in any state. Does that take you to like a centralized?
Yeah, it's national. It's just check your registration. It's really amazing. You check your registration, and then if you're not registered, it gives you an automatic link to where you can register in your state that you wrote down.
Yeah, because we got to talk about the opposition for a minute, right? So I think in some states, not so much California, but in some states, they're literally like purging people off of the voter registration list. And so that is important that you check your registration leading up to this election, even if you think you're already registered.
I'm checking every month just to make sure.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the trolls, right? Are there bad guys trolling your posts? I imagine in Reddit, it's probably insane. Or do you just shut them down? You just delete their comments, or how are you handling that?
I think we get the most trolls on Reddit, like what you suggested. For me, from a marketing perspective, engagement is engagement. So if they're responding to our posts, whether it's positive or negative, it's still helping boost our video to the people who will like it, who will care about it. And honestly, I haven't had to do a lot of kind of commenting or protecting us on my own end because the pro-choice community is so passionate and strong that they jump in there and they just say, no, that's not right. That's not true. This is BS. And they fight the fight for me. So I just kind of sit back and I say, yeah. But yeah, from a marketing perspective, I'm not too worried about it. I know it's something that we talked about leading up, and it's something we're always kind of aware of and prepared for because you never know. And I'm sure it will heat up as we get closer to the election. But for me, it's expected, so I'm not afraid, and I'll just use it to keep the conversation going.
So great. Well, this is wonderful.
I would just like to share that as a woman who just turned 85, and to have a colleague who is very young, for me, it's been heaven on earth to have someone who can handle and knows how to work with social media, take some of the material that I created decades ago and use it. So I just want to say, in this cross-generational exchange and collaboration, for me, it's just been heavenly to have my work out there because I don't have the tech skills to do it, and Hannah does.
It gives your stories and, your amazing films a new life and with a whole new, literally a whole new generation, multiple generations of people. I'm in the middle between you two, and yeah, I think it's a thrill for me. I'm like honored, to pay homage to Dorothy and all of her amazing work, and I'm thrilled and excited that Hannah, it's just like Biden giving the torch to Kamala. Hannah's got the torch. She's going for it. We're going to make a difference. I love that.
And that's what the energy I feel, at least when people respond to our posts, is that people care about these issues so much and they just want a chance to share their story and express that. And our posts can do that for a lot of people. And that makes me feel incredible. Like, I'm so honored to be a part of this work, to work with Dorothy, to really feel like I'm making change, significant change. Even if it's small, it's still change. And that's enough for me. A new initiative or a new little project that we've been doing is we recently sat down with Dorothy and interviewed her about the making of the film. So we should have some clips around that coming up soon as well. I mean, I get to witness it every day when I come to work and hear all the stories. And I think people would be interested in hearing that. We also had a panel where we got to sit down with two executive directors from abortion organizations, which was very informative. And we recorded it and have been creating clips to talk about what they're dealing with right now as well. So a lot of different ways that we're trying to just reach out to the community and support them as much as we can.
I love it.
I don't know, it's always changing, always just trying to stay open to everything and anything. Nothing is off limits.
No, great. And even after November, we're still gonna have to keep fighting clearly. So,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have a big blue wave and we'll be able to kind of at least like relax for a minute, but we'll still have to keep fighting because
Yeah.
clearly it's never, ever, ever over. I was complacent thinking it was all good and no problem, but
I think a lot of people were. For my generation, at least, like, we thought it was something from the past. We didn't realize it was happening now. And for other people, I think they were like, okay, let's take a breath. We can relax. But there's even a clip that's really powerful in the film that we've used on social media about a woman talking about how she thought this was in the past. And that was when Roe versus Wade was still a thing. It wasn't overturned yet. And even then, she was talking about how she wished that this had been solved so that her daughter never has to deal with this again. And here we are dealing with it again. And now I'm thinking, I want to fight as hard as I can so that my future children or nieces or whoever is impacted don't have to deal with it. So it taps into that fear and kind of like, no, we need this to get resolved, or we need radical change now, and we're done waiting.
I'd like to maybe embarrass Hannah because I've never heard you talk about this in such depth before. And I am impressed with two things. One is I knew intuitively, but I didn't know for a fact how much information you have. And two is how well you share it. So unpretentiously confident that what you're doing has power.
Thank you, Dorothy.
I love seeing the energy, and the relationship you guys have built over this time, and I've learned a lot. I knew I would. Thanks so much for joining us today. This has been so inspiring. I can't wait for November. We're gonna get them. We're gonna beat them. We're gonna take our rights back. Ah, so exciting. So don't forget, everybody, stay hysterical.
We are the universe, so beautiful. Through all of the hurt, we'll stand invincible, so beautiful. We'll take on the world. 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 We'll take on the world.